Hey everyone, Hellhog here. It's been a while. I've kind of dropped the ball on uploading content and such regularly. I do have a bunch of videos in the work that I've had for a while now. I just haven't gotten to edit them or upload them or something as simple as I guess doing the descriptions and other things for the videos, and I'm really sorry about that. I'm going to try and get those underway. The other thing I want to apologize for is the lack of the guides that I promised. I said 4 to 6 weeks, but turns out there's some things that have kind of made me want to hold off on doing those, and that mostly has to do with what I think are game breaking for the assassin and the mercenary classes and then the pub side versions of those. That's kind of what this video is going to go over. I'm hoping that with 5.1 they fix some of these, or at least with 5.2. I want to do these guides and I want to get started on them, but there's just so many things wrong with the classes that I don't want to make a guide and then they do a massive change that either fixes or changes certain aspects of the class such that it would necessitate editing a part of the guide. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have information out there that's incorrect. I want to make sure that the guides are done right. So I'm just kind of waiting for them to fix that, but I'm going to kind of go over what these issues are in this video, and hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming from with holding up on doing these guides. The first class I kind of want to discuss and go over is the mercenary class and commando class as well by analog, but I'll just be referring to the mercenary names. Now, this is more so a PvP focus than it is a PvE, although these can be vital and useful in PvE. That's these three utilities that when combined with the cooldowns that the merc already has are quite powerful. And you basically have, as many people say, you have 4 lives as a merc. You're like half a cat. I mean, I would argue that you have more lives just because of how quickly you get some of your cooldowns back. But it's the combination of using Culto Surge, Energy Rebounder, and Trauma Regulator. So Culto Surge basically gives you twice the Culto Overload. It's twice as powerful, twice as fast, lasts longer. You have Energy Rebounder, which absorbs a non-noticeable amount of damage, but helps you as you're getting attacked get your energy shield back faster. And then Trauma Regulators, which if you get fully attacked during that time, will heal you up by 75% of health. If you've ever noticed in PvP, those 85k single heals that mercs can do, that's Trauma Regulators, and it's kind of insane. And with Energy Rebounder, you're getting that back super quick. Oh, and you still have Responsive Safeguards as a cooldown. You know, Chaff Flare is a cooldown for both Arsenal and IO. So you can kind of see that in action here. I'm not really dying at all, or I'm kind of dying, but with the use of cooldowns and how they heal me up, I just keep staying alive. And you'll see that over and over as I'm doing this with these two bosses. Now, I wanted to do this in a duel setting to kind of show it as a PvP focus, but at the time of recording this, I didn't have anybody online that I could bug about this, so I just decided I'll jump into something that's going to be the same level as me. I am bolstered a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. You can see, though, how powerful these cooldowns are for surviving, and it's kind of crazy how impossible it is practically to die because of it. So I guess the last thing to go over for the Mercenary and Commando is that technically speaking, both classes, which should have the exact same mirror utilities, do not. And that's at the Masterful level. One of the things they did with 5.0 is they took out a bunch of utilities, but they merged a bunch of utilities too. So for the Mercenary, they merged Suit FOE and another utility into Threat Sensors, which increases your stealth detection level, your melee range defense, and reduces the cooldown stealth scan, but you also get the benefit of Suit FOE, where when you activate your cure on yourself, you reduce periodic damage for a period of time. Problem is, for the Commando class, they took out one of those and forgot to merge Suit FOE with that, so you have just plain old Suit FOE, which gives you that using Field Aid on yourself, your cleanse, you get the periodic damage reduction. However, you don't get all the other benefits that the Mercenary has in addition to it. And it's kind of confusing because you think, alright, that's such a simple change, how is that an oversight? It's been nearly 2 months now, there was a PTS. But yeah, that's one of other things that need to be fixed, I think, well, with the Mercenary class, and they have shown that they're fixing utilities because they did that with one of the assassin utilities so far. So the other class I wanted to get into was the assassin, which is truly broken. Unlike where the merc's kind of broken just because it's very overpowered right now with its utilities, the assassin is broken due to oversight and bugs making it very powerful. Now, before I get into the strength of the double stance bugs, I first want to go over the utilities. Now, in the legendary tier, Bioware is very quick to fix the second half of Hand of Darkness, which used to proc without actually taking utility in the legendary tier. One of the other utilities in the heroic tier, Insulation, which is supposed to increase your armor rating and DPS stance, does not, as you see here. And unfortunately, that's been broken for a while now, so don't take that if you're a DPS. It's not doing anything for you. But the other issue with utilities is Shapeless Spirit. Now, I believe this is an oversight from the Sorcerer, which has Shapeless Spirit all the way in the heroic tier. It was a change because they removed one of the utilities from the game that had the AoE DR, and so they moved it into Shapeless Spirit. Well, Shapeless Spirit in the code is baseline for Inquisitors, so that gave it to to Sin as well, and I believe that's an oversight because that means that the tank gets Shapeless Spirit Darkness, which gives it a huge advantage over the other two tank classes. But also, when you're in Deception, Entropic Field grants 30% AoE DR, so now you're getting additive 60% AoE DR, and on fights with high AoE damage, like Sword Squadron Underlurker, you'll notice here, Deception Sins take noticeably less damage, almost to a point where they barely need to be healed at all, and it's kind of crazy. I guess the silver lining here is that Hatred finally gets AoE DR, which is desperately needed, but Hatred's viability is really down to large AoE fights only, so it's not really that big of a deal in the long run for Hatred anyway. But it's something that unfortunately exists. As much as I love having it, it's not fair to the other classes, and it's highly overpowered. The last bit I want to go over was the double stances. Now, while making this video, I've learned that double stances actually affect more than just the Assassin Shadow classes. They aren't as potent for those classes, but they are a DPS increase, thus are a problem for balancing purposes. So that's something that needs to be addressed. What you see here is a comparison parse between my Deception Assassin, which does not have a double stance bug, and my Infiltration Shadow, which does have the double stance bug. And what you'll notice is that for Deception Infiltration, you build stacks a lot faster because both stances are proccing static charges, and so you can force breach and discharge way more often. So what you'll notice on the right is that force breach is occurring way more often than it is on the left, and that's because of the double stance. On top of that, your stance does damage too, so it's actually dealing twice as much damage as usual. So the easiest way to notice that a double stance bug is occurring, aside from the crazy higher DPS, is on a parse, your second highest damage ends up being your technique or your stance. So that's quite noticeable, quite a big DPS increase. It also works for Hatred Serenity. The difference for Hatred Serenity is a little less of a DPS increase. It's still a DPS increase because your stance is hitting twice as much, but also you regen a lot more force, so you don't have to Saber Strike pretty much ever, which is a DPS increase from that as well because you're doing higher damage attacks. It also affects Darkness, which you'll see a little bit later on here, but that helps with both DPS and DTPS for the Tank Sin and Tank Shadow specs. But yeah, as you see, basically the DPS over on the right is way higher than the left, and that's just because the stance is hitting twice as much, and the fact that the hardest hitting attack is being used way more often. And that actually requires a slightly different rotation than what you would do priority-wise on the left. You have to forego certain attacks sometimes for the double stance in order to maximize using how the procs work. And when I got a little bit better gear, these are both in about 230 gear, give or take. When I got a little bit better gear, I went and parsed again, and I did much higher on my Sin, and my Shadow wasn't that much better, but then I changed up the rotation to make use of the double stance, and all of a sudden the DPS went up a good 500-600, and I was able to get significantly higher by using a different rotation priority on the right. It was a little more winging it, but because of that, I don't want to make guides focus solely on, alright, here's your rotation based on double stance, here's your rotation based on no double stance, because you really shouldn't have to learn two ways. Now, if you have double stance right now, yes, you want to take advantage of it as much as possible, but it's still not something to me that warrants making a guide just for that, and I want to wait till that's fixed before doing so, since so many people have the double stance bugs. If you notice on Parsley, a lot of the Deception Infiltration parses are all double stance bugs. Hopefully that gets fixed in half a week with 5.1, if not shortly thereafter, but as you can see, it's quite a powerful bug as far as increasing DPS go. And to finish up the discussion on double stances, just kind of what makes double stance so good for Sin tanks, Shadow tanks. I don't have it on this tune, and don't mind my gear, I'm not changing stims for this. But basically that damage reduction that you see there, it's about 38%, would be closer to 50 with double stance, because the stance gives an armor rating increase, percentile increase, as well as the shield chance, which when I pop Dark Ward is 60%, but stances give 15% shield chance, so I would have 75% here had I double stance. Now I've heard of some Sins actually having upwards of 80, even as high as 85% shield chance, just due to how high their shield is. But yeah, it really makes ETPS for Sins incredibly lower, both PvP and PvE. So yeah, I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from with some of this. I still plan to make guides, I still plan to do all that, it's just I'm waiting. Hopefully they fix this stuff come 5.1 or shortly soon thereafter, at least discuss it, mention it, bring to light that they understand these issues exist. In the meantime, I'll be doing other content and start working on some of the other aspects of my guides so that when they do finally fix them, I can have them up a lot quicker. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Maybe you learned something about the classes at the moment and what's going on with them. So yeah, take care guys and take it easy.